All right, so I was 100% hoping that this would be a live video, but I have been sitting in my car for the last 20 minutes hyping myself up to go live and I can't. So that's part of my issue. And this is what I actually wanted to talk to you guys about. And it might seem silly to some, and if this kind of thing is not your jam, I would recommend that you just click past the video and keep going. But I'm about to talk to you about something that's been something I've been struggling with for the last few months. And it's not depression or anxiety, or I'm sure there's probably some aspects of anxiety to it. But so I've been doing a lot of research because researching makes me feel better. And I have self-diagnosed myself with something that in all reality might not be what I have been experiencing, but I certainly feel much better putting a label to it. And with the women that I have spoken to, understanding that I'm not the only one that has ever felt this way. So if you want, pause the video and Google search the term Imposter Syndrome. I had never heard of this in my entire life, but oddly, when I started kind of looking around for just some information on why I would be feeling the way I was, this is what kept popping up. So I kind of opened that can of worms, and it's within that madness of all the information that's out there that I really started to feel better about the feelings I was having. So it's not a condition, it's not a lifelong disease like something like depression. It's a feeling that apparently a lot of women experience regularly. And to me, that was the absolute most healing part of everything that I researched, was the fact that this is something that, and I even had to write stuff down because honestly, I wanted to do this good service because there was a lot I need to get off my chest. But 25 to 30% of high achievers experience this, and 70% of all adults within their lifetime, not just women, men too, where they feel like they're a fraud, where they feel like someone is going to discover that whatever it is that they're actually good at, that they're not. And it sounds silly. And I tried to explain this to somebody in person, and that's partially why I've been having a hard time coming here. But I tried to explain it, and I could tell that I'm really not doing it justice, or that potentially the person I was talking to had never experienced anything like this, and that's why they didn't really understand. But I'm going to give you some examples of the way this has affected me in my life. And the reality is that in thinking back, I realized that this is something that I have experienced for a lot of years. But it just so happened that we're getting a bunch of rain. It just so happened that over the past few months, I think a lot of different things that were going on in my life and in the lives of people that I care about kind of triggered this onslaught of feeling this way over and over and over, to where it started to cripple me in things that I thoroughly enjoyed, one of which is this beauty group, and how incredibly fulfilling it was to me, and I thought to other people, and but I couldn't do it because I felt like a fraud. I felt like a liar, and none of that is true. I truly am everything that I have given to you guys, and I really hope that there has been some good that has come from my group, because quite honestly, that was huge to me, and I really think that because it was so big to me, it's why it became something that was such a mental roadblock. Because the more I read about imposter syndrome, it's actually those kinds of things that start to scare you, because in my mind, I started to feel like you guys were going to figure it out. Like you guys are going to figure out, like, why in the heck am I watching this girl? She's not a makeup artist. I'm not a professional at anything, to be honest with you. I was just giving you what I enjoyed and still do. But I started to feel as though because there were so many things going on behind the scenes in my life, and I will say a little bit of those things. You know, I was struggling with some physical stuff of my own, trying to figure out my body, which I'm through all that. I'm fine. I have my youngest son has been struggling with physical thing after physical thing, which I won't go into his personal health because that's his story and his business. I was really struggling at work, and not in my job and what I do, but just the weight of COVID and keeping people safe and just everything that came along with that really changed my work atmosphere from somewhere that I felt like I was thriving and doing so well, and then all of a sudden I felt like I wasn't good enough to get my staff and the people I care about very much safely through COVID. So I'm going to start with some examples. I said I'm going to tell you, and this is the most ridiculous part for me, because I talk a lot about confidence, and I talk about, you know, having found that a few years ago. I never in my entire life felt as confident as I do now, and that is the God's honest truth. And that's why all of this has kind of really pulled at my brain to help me, to trigger me to figure out what's been going on. But so I hadn't done a live before the other night for 3.5 months. And I can tell you that almost exactly 3.5 months ago, I had this experience. I'm a grown up and I'm going to say this out loud. It was an experience on TikTok where there was a video that I had no business commenting on, but again, it's who I am. There was a video where a girl was encouraging people by letting them know all the rules at a specific store. She was telling them how you can easily just walk in and steal. And my mom/employer vibe kicked in. And I said, I hope that your future employer never runs across this information. The next thing I know, I get up in the morning and I have a good, 100 notifications on TikTok, because while her video had over 100,000 likes, so like 1 million views, she chose my one comment out of the plus 10,000 that were on there to do a video response to, and her video response was good. Like she nailed me, and kudos to her. She nailed me, but she attacked me for being part of an MLM. I am. Saint is an MLM, but I actually don't care about selling makeup. I don't care about recruiting team members. I haven't cared enough about it to keep it going in a way that, has much of an impact on my life, but I do enjoy it. It's still the very best makeup I've ever used in my entire life. And anybody who's interested in that, certainly, a lady that is an MLM participant that sells it. But what that resulted in is that I was personally attacked. This video was up there. People were coming to my page, and most of them I thought were funny. For instance, I have one on my TikTok that's of me twerking. I can't twerk. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. My brain's disconnected from my ass. I don't know. But people were even attacking me on that video, which was hilarious because, their comments like, this is not my words, you look special at AF. That's why I posted it. Like, it's supposed to be funny. Long story short, I had a really ridiculous reaction that could have come from nowhere but lack of confidence in myself, in my ability to speak, or in my ability to have an opinion in anything. And I started having things like that hitting me from every angle. I can't talk about some of the things at work because it's human relations issues, but I had some extremely devastating things happen at work. And my reputation took a big hit several times last year in my professional world. And there are things that shouldn't affect me the way that they do, the way that they did. But all of this kind of started to play into my head. And it took me back to feeling what I had felt many times in my life, that I was going to be figured out, that people are going to all of a sudden, I always said before I went on a cruise, I love cruising. Sorry, I have ADD. I love cruising. But I always said before I ever had the guts to go do it, I'm like, I just don't understand how they float, right? Like one day, God's going to look down and see all these Carnival cruise ships in the water and just, oops, that's not supposed to float, and sink it. And I started feeling like this job that I have kicked ass at, I'll be the first one to say it, I've kicked ass at it for 13 years in this actual position, that people are going to figure out that I'm completely unqualified. I'm just a teen mom. I didn't go to college. I don't have the right experience. All of these things that I disprove every single day I go to work. All of these thoughts going through my head, and an actual sense of tangible fear. And that started to spill over into other things. So my advocacy, for instance, I somehow, and I can't tell you how, I ended up, working with people that have kind of, there's, a subset of people that moved into kind of a charge position, and I regularly feel like, why am I here? Why am I part of this group? Why was I asked to be part of leadership? I don't belong. I don't know what I'm doing, but I do. And I do belong. I do know what I'm doing. I do have the courage to walk up to senators' offices and talk to them, but I'll regularly tell people that I don't, that I ride the coattails of the people I'm with, that I wouldn't have the courage should they not. And I'm so afraid that people will figure out, that I'm terrified, right? I'm terrified. And it spilled into this group. And I spent more time thinking about feeling ridiculous, that I'm 45, right? I'm 45 years old, and why would I think that people would want to watch me do makeup on camera? Why would I think women would give two shits about, about this, about how I feel as a woman right now? And I became scared of you guys. I became scared of what you might be thinking on the other side of the camera, and that maybe people were just being nice when they're supportive or kind when they say thanks for that tip or whatever it might be. I became so afraid of things that weren't happening. They weren't happening. They didn't happen before. But I didn't think I was deserving of any of the actual, real, genuine comments that I was getting. I don't feel like this teen mom is worthy of a lot of the things that I have accomplished in life. I have an excuse always. I have an excuse for why it wasn't me, why I am not the one who deserved that compliment or that positive comment. And I'm trying not to cry because it all does seem very ridiculous, and I do have quite a hold on it now. But one of the last things, and this is something that I really wanted to say today for some reason, one of the things that has me terrified, and I know I am not alone in this flippin' country right now. I never talk about politics on this group. I'm having a hard time looking you in the eye. I never talk about politics in this group because to me it was always a way, you jump on Facebook and for a while there, everything was politics all the way down. And so for a long time, I didn't even go on regular Facebook because I couldn't keep consuming the anger and the hate and all of these things. I couldn't, which is odd because aside from work and family, politics is my absolute favorite thing in the world. I love everything about politics. It's super interesting to me. I follow it very closely. I follow it extremely closely. And the past year or so has had such an impact on me as a person. And it has played into what is going on too, with me feeling like I'm a fraud while I'm not. So one of the things that I had to say out loud in this group, and I bid you a very happy and healthy farewell if you choose not to stay. I understand because of the polarization of the country we live in. But I have to admit that I am a proud independent. I'm a registered independent, and I lean right of center. All right? I lean right of center. I absolutely identify more with the Republican Party than the Democrat Party. And for the last year, I have felt as though people, without knowing me, would label me as a bad person because of my beliefs. I love every one of you. I am 100% pro-life. I don't know why that's so terrifying to say. I'm 100% pro-life. I absolutely cannot fathom a country that is not as diverse as ours. And I have been terrified in my mind that I'll be outed as a conservative, right? And it sounds crazy maybe to people that don't feel the way that I do. But one of the biggest things I've learned in the last couple years that has allowed me to have the voice that I have now is the fact that I have to be 100% honest. I have to be honest. I've used this a million times over, and probably you guys have even heard me say that, as a mom, you serve dinner and plenty of times, I'm sure, unless I'm the only one who burns things, I would have this whole plate of chicken for a table full of people, and if there's one burnt piece, who's going to eat it? It's my piece. I will lie and say I like burnt chicken just so nobody else has to suffer through that piece of chicken. That's who we are. But I became so accustomed through bad marriages, difficult relationships. I've become so accustomed to not even ignore my feelings, to actually lie about my feelings to make sure everybody else around me was comfortable. So then when I get put into, not saying anybody did this, when I get put into the same category with the evil right that I keep seeing and reading and hearing about on the news and everything, I started to question the kind of person I am. But here's the deal. I can't do that anymore. I can't question who I am to make other people feel like they're right or they're comfortable or whatever it is. I 100% have to be who I am, because I can't go back to who I was 5 years ago. And that's what I want so badly, is for anybody who was me, who lived in this box, to make sure that everybody else was okay. That if they ever have these feelings where they should go back into their box, they need to quiet them. And there's a million other things that I've cut pages and excerpts to talk about. But I just hope that anybody who heard this, if they understood it, they gained something from it. And if you didn't understand it, that you don't judge me or other people because it starts to change who you are when you worry about what other people think. So that's the reason that I've been gone. And that's also the reason that I'm coming back, is because I was happier when I was here. And I don't want to think anymore about the people that aren't happy for me, because I'm so grateful for everybody who is. What do you do now? Signing off? Nanu. I don't know how that all works. So, thank you guys.